オーストラリア、アリススプリングス。目的地はエアーズロック。南半球って、あまり飛ぶ機会がないですね。でも私は2回、このフライトシムで飛んでます。アリススプリングスは、飛行機の墓場巡りできたのですが、ありませんでした。エアーズロックは、有名地巡りですね。5分くらい飛んできたのですが、この辺りから独特の地形になります。地層、断層がむき出しになっているのでしょうか？このような地形は今までなかったです。以降は、無解説無編集です。
The Antarctic, maybe that cap was much bigger. Although, I think Antarctica was in a different place. Isn't it funny how it's so wide open, and when I have it on few clouds, I just get that one cloud. That's right. I don't
Actually,
know.
I'm looking at the clouds right now, and I realized that my cloud setting is most likely on low or medium, because it's not the usual clouds that I have, and the update probably changed that.
Possibility. I went and made sure that the NVIDIA driver...
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Because, so, of course, a lot of updates, but another one that dropped today was the NVIDIA drivers, with their new, well, game-ready drivers, as they call it. And sadly, they still have the same perception of what a flight simulator is, which for them does not differ from a first-person shooter or any other fast-paced action. So they are optimizing for frame rate. Sadly, with the simulator, it really doesn't work like this, and I'm on a GTX 970 and a Ryzen 3600, yet they are still pushing me down settings with everything low and a much lower resolution of 768. I could get you actually the full number, because I complained about it at some point. I sent you the screenshot, I think.
Yes, you did.
But yeah, imagine having a resolution of 1366 by 768. I wouldn't be very pleased.
No.
It's pixelish, it's very low resolution, and it still doesn't give you, you know, the full frame rate, because the flight simulator itself will see that there's this extra space and will, instead of use it to render as much as possible, the simulator is a little different. It knows they'll handle more or less workloads depending on where you are and what's happening in the world. So when you start flying, it will leave some overhead. And when you reduce your settings to what NVIDIA gave me for my GPU, it essentially put me at a very low resolution, and the simulator would eat up most of this difference in performance as overhead. So I still had very bad graphics and visuals, and well, everything was just worse. So it didn't make sense for me to keep those settings.
Yeah, I had to get rid of the optimization as well. Although I have a little strange, like, it seems to only happen when I'm flying into the sun. I get a kind of pixelated little band around the engine, the cowling, and some of the stuff that in like the icon. I get it a little bit in the cockpit, but it was more pronounced. Yeah, it's like black pixelated noise. I don't exactly know how to describe it, but
well, it is noise from the reflection.
Yeah, it is. So I turned it off, and it was a lot better.
Yeah, it's going to be quite useful.
It's still there a little bit, but you know, I'm so happy with the way everything looks outside in general that I am lost in the scenery 99% of the time. So I am definitely, if they had a role for Discord, it would be
noise.
No, because I'm kind of not looking at the end of at the front nose of the aircraft. I'm kind of looking, you know, like what we're seeing in front of us, this strange kind of sort of canyon, or for lack of a better term.
I was wondering, looking at these parallel ridges that run for miles, whether it's the result of some big rock that struck millions of years ago.
You know, I thought that too. I was going to say asteroid, and I said, no, I better not say. I don't think I'm a catastrophist. I will say one thing. Everybody kind of beeped out on me a little bit here, so I'm having one of those server where everybody goes, but
I believe for this you have to go into options, data, turn multiplayer off, save, turn it back on.
let's see if I can do that.
And for those who have the question about is shared cockpit coming up soon, what is happening with this? I'll be honest with you guys, if you still have some bugs related to multiplayer, shared cockpit won't come out soon. Because it's been clear multiple times that developers have mentioned this. If you see multiplayer bugs, it means there's still multiplayer issues, and we don't really work on shared cockpit if there's still bugs in the multiplayer, because we need multiplayer to be a feature that is strong for us to be able to build upon. So once that will be fixed, then we'll get more lucky, but it seems like shared cockpit is still a few months away at least.
Yeah.
Single player. You mean like, you know, your multiplayer still bugged?
There was nobody at Allison Springs.
We took off at the moment, so we are about 17, 18 nautical miles west.
I was there 10 minutes early and never saw anyone.
Yeah, I'm having a little bit of an issue too. Cookie, I turned it off. Do I have to re-enter the sim and then come back and turn it back on, multiplayer?
Oh no, it's just turn it off, press F11, turn it back on, save and exit the menu.
So maybe we're having a little bloop, but that's okay. I can see on my phone on Twitch, so I just don't see anybody during my flight. So I'm flying kind of solo.
Yeah, same here.
If not, just the other fix could be just switching region servers.
Yeah, we could try that. So let's.
But for me, I realized that this really doesn't work for me anymore. I have to really go and turn off multiplayer and then turn it back on from that data menu. And then it works. So I think it's time for us to kind of dig into the update, and then that will merge with the live Q&A.
Yep.
One thing that I find pretty interesting to begin with is we don't really have anything else but the patch notes right now. They're still working on the actual Thursday update post. So what we currently have is only the release notes for 1.10.7, which is update number 5 that came out October 29th, so that's today. And the live Q&A that we had yesterday on Wednesday, the 28th of October. So that is a lot of little quality of life improvements, I'd say. They did modify a lot of things with the sensitivity. As we've already talked very recently, the sensitivity curves have been modified, finally adding a little more control for us, something which was very lacking from the beginning. And of course there's always bugs with a few controllers, a few things like this, so that will allow most of those bugs to at least have some kind of workarounds or be less dramatic as a bug. The reason why this update was delayed, and it finally got fixed as well, was many of the autopilot issues for autopilot. So VNav, LNav is still being worked on, but it's more of the pitch, the altitude, and those related features, like being able to fly around and not have erratic flight behaviors from that autopilot. So those have mostly been fixed for the Dasher TBM 930, the Cessna 152, 152 Aerobat 172, and the 172G 1000 variant. Those are the ones that had most of this behavior, so those are the first ones being really fixed. The autopilot also had a few improvements to other planes that were a little noticeable, but they're not necessarily fully listed on that patch note. They just want to make it simple for us. Other stuff that is really amazing, YAYE, the press any key to start screen is finally gone. I think this one will celebrate for a long time.
Yeah, definitely it'll save me from that. Oh, why have I been gone for 10 minutes and it's press any key? That was one
Yeah.
of my fumbling issues that I've had for a while. I had to reload here, so I'm in the process of.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just click back on me to spawn in.
I
if you
did.
want.
I'm kind of looking around to see if I see ya. Oh, and guess what it's done? It's turned on the autopilot all by itself.
Uh-oh. We'll just...
Yeah, so I'm getting a few strange little bugs here. So give me a second to see if I can disengage. There we go.
Yeah, you're gonna have to press that AP off.
I did.
Otherwise you might die, who knows.
I'm gonna speed up here so I can catch up a little bit, because I took me off a little bit. But I get to see this beautiful, maybe asteroid created canyon or whatever it is that, like somebody took a giant snow shovel, shoveling the driveway there to make this big path. So I'm looking out ahead to see if I see all. Hopefully.
So yeah, there's that. There's a few other improvements and fixes that have been added. They're kind of specific to a plane, like a little bug. They added a lot of performance improvements as well, and there's more coming up next patch as well. But mostly right now it has to do with the user interface, the shop, and all that stuff. And we finally have a few extra little options that are available, mostly the Trek IR, which is now something you can enable or disable, as well as a cockpit tooltip thing. So if you don't like seeing those little labels that show up when you put your mouse over buttons inside the cockpit, you don't need an add-on anymore to fix that. So
That's great.
Exactly, you can just fix it by removing, well, deactivating that feature. It's an accessibility menu.
Excellent.
Many of these things are kind of going to link back to the dev Q&A, honestly.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, there's so much information that came out in that thing. It's
So I
and of
guess
course,
it'll be a bit of a repeat for some of them. So I'll kind of skip the ones that we're going to repeat. Of course, there's the few installation things that have been fixed. I feel bad for the people that had to reinstall the whole simulator, like download 90 gigs again randomly. I'm thinking most of these things are now solved. I know there's a few that might still happen, so it's more of a question of they're getting there. Don't worry too much and keep downloading. They've also added support for the Thrustmaster TCA quadrant. That is finally something I thought would have showed up earlier, honestly. But it's good that they have a profile for it now, so that means technically all your buttons are already mapped. You may not have to map it yourself. And of course, they've added fixes for dead zones and a few sensitivity stuff. The rest of the... Really?
Oh
Can
my
you have
God.
a bit more maturity next time? Be very useful.
just wait till Xbox comes.
Oh man.
Wait till the Xbox.
That is going to be a challenging one, right?
They're gonna make some new tools in Discord. Mark my words. There's
Yeah.
gonna be some new fun there. Unfortunately, I am kind of doing a solo flight because my
Try that
multiplayer is
again.
just not co-oping. Let's try it again.
Which server?
East USA?
Yes.
I'm loading in as well. Sorry I'm late.
Ah, it's okay. I'm having my own issues as well for some reason. I can obviously see everybody on Twitch, but for me, it's just taking a little bit of time to re-engage. Maybe it is something from the patch. Who knows? Or
Am
maybe
I
I'm
in
just...
front of all you guys? Because I was seeing a few of yous, but now I don't see anyone.
I think I might be a bit too far.
I see airshow, I see pre-suffix, Herebrine, and Wiki.
I'm mine.
Oh, pre-suffix is in for once.
Yeah, he's further down though. I don't think he's finding us.
Oh,
Love to Fly is in front of me, and I mean, there's a few clouds for me that could be hiding some of you guys down there. But I mean, my throttle's at 50%. So for those who are trying to catch up during the
Yeah.
I'll just slew. It's okay.
Okay. Yeah, and I
well.
see W222 is also in the same boat where he's updating right now, trying to join us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That loop
everyone's kind
of yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can understand the update itself is a solid gig just from the store, and then another 6 to download. That's for the standard version. I don't know how it is for
Yeah, mine was
the deluxe.
7.5, I believe.
Yeah, okay, so a little
Something like
more
a bit
for
more.
you guys, probably the planes and some of the airports, but it's nice to know at least, most of the stuff is at least being fixed, and those are big updates, right? When you download 6-7 gigs, it's a lot coming in, so at least it's good to see that even if they have a 2-week cadence for it, they're doing pretty darn good.
Yes. I think it's, like I said all the time, they're doing a lot more updating and frequency than we ever had in the past, because you remember, like with FSX, I think we had a couple of Service Pack 1, 2, maybe Service Pack 3, then like a year or so later they did the accelerator, and then that was it. I mean, they did a Steam version, but so we're getting a lot of updates, a steady flow of information. They're giving us the developer Q&A, the roadmaps, of course our normal Thursday updates, patches, world updates. Matter of fact, speaking of world update and the Q&A, Jörg mentioned basically that we can expect 5 world updates in 2021. So it'll be interesting to see what those world updates are going to end up being. We've got the USA one is coming out next, and we'll have 5 in 2020 for that alone.
Yeah, that's true. Lots of update coming in. Actually, let's just jump into the Q&A.
Sure.
So the Q&A happens every month on Twitch, so it's fine. We don't have to every 2 weeks. That would be a lot of information, because we take notes during those. Took over 1,000 words last time. So the updates, of course, we mentioned that from before. It's something that was postponed. Now, update 6 is expected to be a smaller update this time. They're not expecting a large update, but it's still going to be full of content, because they are going to include support for the latest Honeycomb products. They're going to open up VR Wave 2 during that time, and they're opening a lot of the CPU improvements that they have been working on in the little while. So that includes a lot of the CPU management. So now the flight model is going to be more multi-threaded. So that means that the work is more distributed between the cores that you have. So if you were on a simulator that was CPU bottlenecked, so if you go into dev mode and you show the low FPS counter, if you see it's limited by CPU, well, now you should have a much better improvements with update 6, which is the next update, so 2 weeks from now. And that should give about 6 to 10 FPS increase from the CPU. So if you're CPU bound, you're going to get a lot more space, and even if you're GPU bound, certain tasks will be done quicker. So don't know the impact for that. But yeah, that's some of the really good things. Just about performance. So, I mean, who doesn't want free FPS, right?
Well, yeah, they're trying their best to accommodate as many different setups that they can. Obviously, they want as many people to join and have a good experience, so that's a good sign to me.
Definitely. And of course, we can start getting hyped, because update 7, which is the one after update 6, so a month from now, so probably end of November, will be the one that includes the USA World Update. And, well, USA World Update means we're going to get something up to 1 meter of resolution, up to, right? So not everywhere you're going to get that 1 meter. As well, a lot of aerial imagery, a lot of third-party airports that are also being included, just like in the Japan update. So for a lot of people, you may not have seen too much if you don't fly too much in Japan, but I know know there's a vast community that flies in the US, so regardless, this time they will see the difference, because Atlanta International is one of these airports that are going to be made. So yay for us, we're getting a third-party airport that's going to be probably made in partnership with a company, just like they did with Japan, unless Asobo takes care of that one. I would be surprised because it is quite the workload.
Yeah.
But
I think
yeah, that's the thing. Could be Orbex, Gaia simulations, and
I was
there's
wondering.
tons more.
give
that-
him a helping hand on that one.
Exactly. So that's part of the things that you could be kind of thinking about. There's not just Atlanta, of course. There's Friday Harbor, and for those good old FSX people, you'd recognize Friday Harbor as the airport that you would spawn in if you forgot to choose an airport. So if you're an FSX person, you'll remember spawning in midair at about 220 knots at Friday Harbor, close to Seattle. So quite the funny one.
I do remember that.
Stuff. So that's going to be modeled. It's a small airport, but I find it quite a lot of fun, honestly.
Yeah, I like the area. The area is a lot of fun to fly in.
The legacy.
Yes.
So they're adding that. They're also adding New York Stewart and a few other ones. So a few surprises for us to wait for. So that's a whole month ahead still. They're also adding things like more bush trips, more points of interest. So they're putting a bit more focus on the US this time, which I can totally understand because the aerial and just satellite imagery could be up to 3-4 years old now in the US. So while the satellite data is there, it's just getting older. So there's certain things that are new.
Gotta read it in,
And are we going to see a new building type? What would it be? Because they did that for Japan. They added the traditional style Japanese house building. And what could it be for the US?
Well, the US is so huge, they're going to have to do, if they were going to do that, they'd have to do a little bit of regional, you know, because the southwest of America looks quite different from New England and the Midwest. And then you've got, of course, Florida. Every color of the rainbow for your house.
They'll have a McDonald's.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
I didn't want to say it, but honestly,
Just joking.
I'm waiting for somebody to come up with a flying golden arch. Nothing but just a big M flying through the sky here. I love this landscape. I'm a little bit behind y'all, and unfortunately I can't see you, but I'm there in spirit, so.
come on.
I finally got caught up.
Yeah, I'm caught up, but my sim's just not showing any
Did you try
multiplayer.
switching
fun.
both the region and turning on and off?
Yeah, I tried on and off. I went to North Europe. I came back.
Hey, Mr. Cookie, I have a suggestion that might fix this issue with people not being able to see everyone.
Please, go ahead.
I'm kind of cheating on you. I fly with another group as well, and they always use the Southeast Asia server because I guess the idea is there's a lot less users on it, even though it's got a slightly higher ping. Every flight I've been in with them, I've seen everyone. I've never had an issue. So you might want to try that Southeast Asia server.
Could be something to think of, honestly.
Yeah, why not?
Because, well, I honestly did not have any server issues recently. Like this is the
I
first
haven't either.
time.
First time it's
Maybe
happened a
3
little bit
weeks, a
longer.
month. I think it would be an overload. Like a lot more people are flying because of the update. That would be my guess. So I guess Southeast Asia in this case would be a solution. But
Yeah, it doesn't create any issue with like people skittering across the sky due to latency or anything. It works perfectly fine, and I've had 4 or 5 flights with them, and I haven't even heard anyone talking about not seeing each other. So, but maybe that's the way it is with these groups too. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, honestly. It's kind of weird. But I didn't hear anything about server. I do know they did patch some server stuff a few days ago, but that was related to caching of weather data. That was fixed server side. So that shouldn't even impact multiplayer. But definitely something to keep in mind. If more people cannot connect, then we might actually switch. But we're a little bunch in here, so I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll probably switch later, but we're quite a bunch here, so I don't think we'll switch yet. Try switching, your multiplayer and your region servers a few times. And if not, then I guess we'll just switch to Southeast Asia. Enjoy to see how the sim reacts to the higher pings. Because honestly, I don't know myself how it would react.
I have no idea.
FSX would be very jaggered. Like if it was a 2 FPS, 3 FPS, 5 FPS game. DCS kind of makes your plane fly randomly around, like an elastic being thrown around. B3D, I don't really know, but I'm guessing it would be a bit like FSX. So I guess we could probably try eventually.
Good. Even when I chose you as the destination, it still didn't work, by the way. So not quite sure, but that's okay. I can tag along. I'm just flying in I got my invisibility cloak over my plane.
I'm quite surprised, honestly.
I am too. I've never really had this happen. So, or I've had it happen where it blinked on and off for a moment, but not really, not for so long. The only thing I can do is come back out, and I'll just choose you as destination again. Could be that when I turned off all players for a test, and when I turned it back on, maybe it didn't take. But we'll just find out. So we can carry on with the Q&A, and I'll jump right in and relocate.
Have you guys discussed the new control sensitivity paradigm yet?
Only just a little bit. There's a lot of people that are having. I mean, there's a few people. Mine was great. It didn't seem to. Matter of fact, it seemed a little bit more stable for mine. I think I'm kind of lucky. There were some people in the forum that were having some issues. Now, they didn't really say what aircraft they were using, so I don't know if it's an aircraft-specific issue. But they had what they were saying was asymmetric curves. But there were a few people that were trying to explain. I think some people have sensitivity exceptionally reduced, like maybe
that was the case with me. It basically had a flat line that was also asymmetrical on mine. Reconfiguring it all seems to have worked just fine, but a couple of the people on Discord, like, they had higher reduction. They were at like negative 80% or something on their sensitivity.
Yeah.
And with the new paradigm, it actually inverted some of their controls, where when it redrew the curves based on their previous profiles, turning too far left would actually make the plane turn right. It was very strange, but it seems to be easily fixed with kind of a reconfiguration. But they have 2 sliders now instead of 1. And some people have mistaken their plane not behaving for a plane issue when it's actually just they hadn't checked their controls yet, because it just completely changed it.
I have mine at 66, minus 66 across all of them, and that's still the same. It handles the same way, from what I can tell. I think what they've done is given us the ability to scale both directions. Like, you want more sensitivity for, I don't know, up elevator than down. It seems to be why there's an extra slider.
Yeah, they made it more capable. The only issue is that the way it automated the carryover is some people had some issues. But once you reconfigure it, it gives you significantly more adjustability on your curve. I think it's a good thing.
It's probably a way for them. Well, when you add certain functionalities, sometimes you have to wipe anything that was before, any settings that existed before, to adjust for the new features. And they probably tried to be as compatible between the newer and the older version. And, well, of course, it can't be 100% clean. So they probably had.
It's kind of new math now.
Yeah. So there's probably that part. This low incompatibility between the 4 now. So yeah, the best is start fresh, clean up that section of your settings, and restart should be good.
Yeah, I was
something somehow feels a little more solid about the new control paradigm too.
Yeah, that's the impression I had when I first did
Yeah,
a
I
little
don't-
takeoff,
can't-
and yeah, it was not as well, I don't want to say sensitive. That is literally what it is. It was not as extra responsive. It just felt smoother. It felt like the aircraft had more weight behind it.
Yeah, I don't know what they did, but like I can't put my finger on it. But after reconfiguring my controls, like it does feel like the plane handles a little bit more sharply, not sensitivity wise, but like where I put it is where it wants to be, sort of. It's a little less molasses. I don't know what the difference is.
Yeah, it's
Right.
kind of hard to figure out, but we do know the end result, so that's at least fixed, I guess, in a sense.
Hey, Mr. Cookie, what height are you at? Are you at 11,000?
It could be a little high, yeah. I'm at 11,000 right now.
I'm at
11,000.
45.
Wow.
What?
4,500.
Wow, 45,000.
Okay, yeah.
You had a
Okay.
Concorde? Like, do you have the Concorde?
Yeah,
and
I was.
Yeah. I've gone with the traditional, let's just restart the sim. And I can't complain because I have been extremely lucky during all of these iterations and, I can't update or I couldn't install it. I didn't have any of those issues. The only thing I ever had was a few fly-ins. I think in the beginning, I had to crash the desktop with 3 of them, and then 1 single time for the VFR map. Otherwise, none of these issues. So, I'm kind of lucky, so I can't complain that I'm going to try to restart and see if I can just click on you as a destination and get myself there.
Also, I'm aware that internet-wise right now, the stream may be a little weird. I do see a few drop frames, so it'll just be patient. It'll reconnect promptly. Also, I'm not the only one with internet weirdness. Yasser1020 in the Twitch chat said, "Nice to listen to your voice on Discord and watching the stream to see you fly at the same time, while the sim updates for me at 20 bits. 20 bits per second. That is extremely slow. I feel bad for you, man. That is not enjoyable."
For you, I have no weather option.
What do you mean, no weather option?
When I click, like where it says weather and time, it's all grayed out. Can't choose live, can't choose preset, can't choose custom. I don't have any live.
Is it in game? You mean?
Yeah, I'm loading back in, and I decided I would just click on you for set as departure. I don't have anybody, and I can't change the weather. I can't change the time.
It feels a bit like if you were in a group. I believe it could be like if the multiplayer got messed up again, and you're somewhat into a group without being in a group.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the multiplayer is having a little bit of
few issues, right?
weirdness. Yeah, I don't know if it's just because everyone's flying tonight, which could be the case. Maybe Thursday night. I think it could be something totally possible after an update. But that is kind of weird. At the same time, it is a new update, so I would expect certain things to show up. And that's kind of interesting because I could talk about this right now. There is this this interaction between the players and the simulator and the expectations, which are 3 different things, honestly. And at multiple points during the live Q&A, there's been mentions. I would say more like little hidden messages. In a sense, what came out of it was sometimes people believe that a plane acts weirdly and they believe it is a bug, an issue, when it's actually just how the sim is supposed to perform. But people treat it as a bug because it doesn't feel right. For example, an updraft. Having an updraft that is way too strong could have issues for some people. They think, well, this feels like a bug, this doesn't feel right, my plane's not supposed to be moving like this. So sadly, no. That's sometimes the bugs are not necessarily what you believe they are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
It's really too bad that when you read people giving their opinions about flight models, you know how it is. Some people are real life pilots. They've actually flown the actual aircraft. Others are talking out of their butt because, you know, they've never actually flown a real aircraft. And you don't know. You don't know who you're listening to.
yeah, you have to. We had discussed it several times before, in that because there's new technology and new systems and the way things are being dealt with in this new simulator, it's a mix between, yeah, there's going to be bugs and things are going to need to be tweaked, sensitivities need to be changed, more physics and dynamics will alter over time. But the thing is, when you're really dealing with something that's pretty new, you're stuck in the middle in the beginning, because you've got, it feels weird, but does it feel weird because the physics are wrong completely, or does it feel weird because now you have new dynamics that never have really been modeled before, and they feel strange or off because you've never flown in them before? So there's this bit of an unknown where I think we're going to need
Landing gear.
a lot of
Landing
pilot
gear.
input,
Landing gear.
and hopefully get some manufacturer input as well, so that as these dynamics are worked on and the model is updated, I think in the end, I don't think it's going to feel right to a huge number of people that have been flying, you know, one sim or the other for like 15 years. It's going to feel weird because those sims never modeled these new, like the air mass and those things that we've talked about before. So it's a learning curve for everybody. What does that really feel like? And we need people that have the, you know, the know-how and the experience to basically input some information to us and say, yeah, I know that the turbulence feels like it's off, or that downdraft feels like it's too strong, but let me tell you from personal experience, I'm a pilot, I'm a test pilot, whatever, this is how this plane reacts in this kind of weather. And once we start hearing from that, people can realize, wow, it isn't wrong, it's, I'm not used to it, because we are now closer to the way it should be. And I think that's, and for me, I'm gonna maybe do a little bit of commentary here with you, because I'm just having a server issue. So I don't see any live players or all players. That's okay. I will expound and listen, and I'll move from there while I try to.
I would suggest you try cycling through the servers and turn the multiplayer on and off from time to time, see if that fixes it. But to add to your point, sadly, people are so not used to certain of these things that they've even had to reduce the max amount of updraft that was possible in the simulator. There's some of those variables which right now they're keeping at a very conservative level to make sure that people don't believe it is a bug and have a tainted opinion of the simulator when it's behaving normally. So it's kind of sad to see this. At the same time, I know they will eventually change it, because it's part of the things that Asobo knows and keeps in mind, probably on the list, and they say, well, in a few months, more people will understand how the flight sim is supposed to work, how people are supposed to be flying, and it will only improve for the best. As a result, more education on how flight behaviors are and how the specific plane behavior is will allow them to turn back on this, for example, the updraft. 50 knots and so on.
I hope what they do is, like, when Asobo officially adds a glider, not some add-on that adds it before the sim is ready for, you know, the kind of gliders need those updrafts and downdrafts. So I hope what happens is, if you take a glider up in the air, it sets things closer to realistic. But for people that are just flying light aircraft, that they don't want that degree of realism, it's, you know, they can set the turbulence to half of normal or a quarter or whatever.
Right,
you know,
just let it be
in a glider, you can be in a thermal climbing at sometimes 2,000 feet a minute. And you know, I'm not flying through anything like that in the Cessna. You know, I'm not experiencing anything that indicates I've just flown through a stonker, as they call them.
little bit of a strange bug here, but yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the more they can allow you to have some control over your experience, like some people were saying, oh, they think the level of detail's gone down, or they're having other issues, and I think the best idea is to implement, like you said, if some people don't like that level of realism because either it feels weird or it's too difficult to deal with, then, you know, allow that to be something that you can select for your experience. If your machine is having some performance issues, maybe add a few levels in between low and ultra so that you can try with a slider, so to speak, maybe different gradations or extra gradations of how you want that experience to be. And
Yeah, and I would say for myself, like once I add gliders, I'll do both. But if I'm in a Cessna 152 manually flying it, I don't really want to fly through a big ass thermal that's gonna, you know, I've got it trimmed for a certain height. Maybe I'm flying IFR, so I have to stick to a certain height. And then you come into a thermal and suddenly you're going up 500 feet a minute. Now you gotta deal with that. So even, you know, I don't necessarily want to have to deal with that, even though it's realistic. But in a glider, definitely, I want varied thermals in strength and size, and of course the downdrafts that come with them. And bridge lift, of course, which I guess is already in here.
Yeah, I had I was flying in the mountains in a thunderstorm, and man, all of a sudden I was just going down like 500,000 feet per minute. Just down it went abruptly, and I was like, wow. But of course, if you are in a severe thunderstorm, that is absolutely possible. So it's not something that's, you know, it's not something that's off, so to speak. So
I used to hang glide, and if you look at the history of hang gliding, there have been pilots that they weren't respectful enough with, you know, with the clouds that were forming. And if you see thunderheads, like those billowing clouds that are like super tall, as a hang glider pilot, and even maybe light aviation pilot, you don't fly under those. You can get sucked up in them, and you aren't coming out until it spits you out the side or the top. They've had pilots frozen solid in these things, and of course died.
wow,
Yeah,
that's
those things are nasty. Yeah.
a bit of a shocker.
No, you can tuck the bar in a hang glider. Like they'll fly, I don't know, 70, 80 miles an hour, the high performance ones, when you pull the bar into your knees, but you can do that. You're still going up in those things. It doesn't matter.
No matter what you do.
Well, the moment all of this is possible in the simulator in good enough details for the simulation to be accurate, that will be amazing for people to train on.
Oh yeah, it's
Able
I
to
haven't.
practice to not to fly in those things.
Yeah,
Someone said they were. Look, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I don't have a lot of experience in it, so for me it would be a whole new experience, which that would be really fun. So hopefully they will do that someday.
Someone was in a group flight the other day, and I guess people were watching on YouTube or Twitch, and they were in a hurricane. Like I guess they were using real weather, and there was a hurricane somewhere. And I guess one of the viewers said, "Do you guys get scared when you fly into those things?"
As if you
I wouldn't be surprised though.
fly into. Yeah, that would be.
Well, you know, it's like you told me for a while. Sometimes you get into so much into the simulator that you kind of believe you're into the plane, and you kind of become part of the simulation, right? So at some point, and you told me it felt the same way as if you were leaving a boat after a full day.
Yeah, I was
even longer.
concentrating so hard because I got myself into a situation where I literally couldn't see anything, surrounded by mountains, very bad turbulence, very bad rain, and I'm like, I just kept waiting to hit the mountain, even though I'm trying to use the synthetic vision. And matter of fact, you know what? I wasn't. That's right. This last time I was in a plane that didn't have it, I was using the VFR map with the topography turned on, the ISO lines turned on, so I could see, can I get my way out of this canyon that I'm in Alaska, and then mountains were just right on edge. So after an hour of like, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna crash, any second the mountain's coming out of this cloud, I'm just gonna crash. And after an hour, when I shut it off, after I survived, I was like, I feel like I'm moving. I was concentrating so hard that it just sort of swallowed me up. And that's the kind of, I don't know, it's something
Suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, you suddenly get caught up in what you're doing, and it's just the immersion in that moment is complete. Everything else is shut out. You don't realize what room you're in, and I was just concentrating so hard because what I kept saying to myself was, imagine if, in the beginning, I was like, imagine if this was real. What would you do? This is how people, come to a bad end in IMC, and it's why it's the number one killer of GA pilots around the world. It's flying from VFR into IMC condition. And there's a lot of good people on YouTube, and there's a lot of good pilots and programs trying to educate people how to, of course, avoid that situation, but if you find yourself in it, how to maximize your chances of getting out of it successfully. And I kind of just got lost in that, and it works. When you go through that suspension of disbelief, it can really, really work depending on what kind of flying you're doing. So
I noticed you guys have come down in altitude. What altitude are you deciding on? Because I went up to 11 grand, and now I see you're lower than me.
Yeah, I descended a bit to 8,500 currently. I mean, it's kind of because of the clouds back then. Just above the clouds here. It's also because I'm
Oh, we
slowing
don't
down
have to be
because-
too high anyway. You can see better.
Yeah,
detail.
I keep slowing down so you guys can catch up. Currently 130 knots. So that way you guys can catch up a bit.
By the way, speaking of flying in dodgy conditions, was it in this group that someone recommended the Missionary Bush Pilot channel on YouTube?
I think it probably would have been me. So I've been watching him for a little while.
I just
In the-
lost about half you guys.
Flying in New.
Yeah, I lost everyone.
Yeah.
This is definitely, there's probably way too many people right
Yeah, I've lost.
In case it helps, about 5 minutes ago, I was right behind you, as you saw, and your plane was like jerking forward and jerking back. I think the servers are just overloaded right now.
It may be. Yeah, I'm flying again. I just took off from Alice Springs, so I'm not going to catch up, but I'm going to try to.
Hey, Slew.
Yeah, just slew mode.
Yeah. My slew has been a bit psychotic as well. I'll give it a try, though.
There's no shame in it. When
Though,
we're
I
doing
don't.
a flight.
Can't he click on the flight plan? If he loads the flight plan, can't he
I'm
click
not-
on?
Live players. That's the problem. When I tried to click on somebody as a destination, there are no live players anywhere in the
No,
world.
I mean, if you go back to the world map, load the flight plan, you'll see the flight plan, and I would imagine you can click on one of the waypoints and start from it.
I've actually tested that, but if you try, we're between SV004 and waypoint 40.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right though. I think there's some overloading and stuff. Because even
There must be.
the cloud quality for me is different. It's lower, even though I just checked and it's on ultra, and it's definitely not ultra what I'm seeing. So I'm having a feeling that maybe it's a server side issue, because I don't have any players at all. Even in London, there was nobody. I just happened to go over to see how many people were at Heathrow, and it had no one. So I'm like, okay. And I tried different.
I've descended to 8,500. What throttle setting are you using? Flying Cookie?
I'm on 43% right now, approximately. Like, honestly, not that. 40% according to the sim. Honestly, I think we should just try switching to to some Asian servers, like East Asia, probably. Because
I'm down.
there's a ping of 229, but honestly, if we can see each other, I think that's all that matters. If we slide in or out.
It really hasn't. I mean, there's been no issues when I've had group flights on that server. I've had about 4 or 5 of them for 2 hours. And I don't remember anyone saying you guys have disappeared.
The only time it's ever happened for me, well, a couple of the big community fly-ins that Microsoft did, I think I had like 3 issues, and then a couple times I wouldn't see anybody for maybe a second once in a while, but this is the first time I've experienced where I don't have any.
I just lost everybody, so I'm on board to try a different server if you want.
Sure, let's try it anyway. Let's see.
Yep, so I currently switched to Southeast Asia here. The ping of 240 millisecond, but I mean,
You gotta exit the cockpit. You gotta go back to the main menu, don't you, to switch?
No, just hit escape.
Escape. Yep.
Maybe I'm ahead of everyone. I don't know.
dreads.
I somehow got like 20 miles ahead of everybody. I don't know how, so.
Yeah, Bug Zebra.
But I see everybody,
all the way
so
down
I think
there.
we're okay.
Yay!
Yeah, I see you, Bogged Zebra, and Ingo Plane to my
Oh,
right.
nice.
Yeah, I got you all. Well, I got the ones that are out front with me anyway. Yeah, this is working.
Yeah, it seems like we got everyone back. Yay, finally. Wow, that was a weird one.
See if I can slew up to you all. I might be able to. Let me get myself.
Let's hope it lasts.
Yeah, I can
If
actually.
someone's restarting their flight. Kings Creek Airport. I'm just flying over it right now.
See
If someone's restarting their flight, Kings Creek Airport.
Kings Creek. Let's see here.
Thanks for that. Meanwhile, let's actually continue through
Sure.
the big notes that we had with the Q&A live stream that we had yesterday, because we had a few other very interesting details that came up. Well, of course, for those who were screaming in voice chat all the time, the Xbox version is not here yet. I know a lot of people have been asking about this, and on the live stream, we've even had to actually ban the word because of how many people kept asking, and the same answer was always given. So the Xbox version, there's no details on that yet. The only thing that we could say could be close to that could be how VR that's being developed right now with Windows Mixed Reality will work for PC and Xbox. That's a cool factor. I don't know, for those who will have the next generation Xbox, if you're interested in VR and just want a simple experience, I guess Xbox VR will be the way.
Did you just say the Series X is going to support VR?
The next gen console, so yeah, Series X.
Wow, that's going to cut into graphic card sales. A lot of people are just going to get that instead of upgrading their PC, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, actually, we could start talking about that because NVIDIA and AMD both got their GPU lineups out, which kind of is already a big deal with the pricing and the performance that we're getting for the same price. So those who are looking to a GPU, look no further below a 2080 Ti because you're going to spend way much more for your money. What we're looking at right now is there's still a lot of benchmarks that need to come out. So for AMD, the big reveal was only Wednesday, so yesterday. So we don't have any of the actual reviews from TechTubers and websites. So those are probably coming up in the next few days. Most of the availability is going to be in November regardless. But if you're looking for a GPU, November, December is when you're probably going to spend that money. So keep an eye out for this. But the GPUs are in competition with the consoles at this point, which is a negative for NVIDIA, but still a benefit to AMD at some point, because AMD, of course, takes care of the GPUs from their Radeon lineup as well as the Xbox and the PlayStation, both for the CPU and GPU. So they're in a really good position right now because they're getting your money regardless, which is already a very, very strong factor.
Oh, so the Series X, it's going to have an AMD CPU and GPU? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
It does, yeah, exactly. Which, think of it, is an amazing thing because everything's going to be already kind of pre-optimized for you. So if you have a game that's been ported console to PC later on, it'll already have all those AMD optimizations. So those who have an AMD system, computer, and an Xbox or PlayStation can only benefit from this.
The Xbox basically has a 3700X in it, if I remember right.
Yeah, well, it's more of a custom because there's extra hardware and software, but roughly,
It is,
yes.
but it's
Core-wise,
8, and I think it has hyper-threading.
of course, it has hyperthreading. If the console doesn't have hyperthreading, it cannot be next gen for this. Well, it won't
Yeah.
even be last gen, honestly.
But if they can
It's been a while
optimize for
since
the
we've had,
Xbox, that means we can expect probably at least 8-core optimization in the DX12 release.
Yes. Well, the DX 12.5, aka DirectX 12 Ultimate. Yes, that will be part of it. That's some of the things why DX 12 itself is currently being continually worked on with things like software ray tracing, which is the usual method, but it's finally part of the API. So it is finally being mainstreamed on games and consoles, which was what expected to begin with. So that's
It's
a lot
funny
of
how
exciting
we
stuff.
it's
Yep,
funny
go
how
ahead.
we adjust to things so quickly. Like before, I didn't get excited when I saw the reveal for this last September, like in 2019, because I was highly skeptical that it was going to run on any kind of normal gamer's system. And then it came out, and it does, and I'm, amazed by it. But here we want more. We want more frame rates. we're all amazed by the frame rate we get already, but we want more. We always want more.
Yeah, we're chasing an ideal that seems to shift, but that's also part of the shift is from the actual the manufacturers as well, because after all, they have to dangle the carrot in front of us, and once we have our 2080s now, you gotta get the 3080, or you have to have the 6900 XT from AMD that's coming out, and so it's a little bit of a horse and carrot kind of a game, but I kind of judge it based on what kind of experience I'm actually having. And if the experience I'm actually having is, stutter free, that it looks good, and it's running well, then I don't necessarily covet, oh, well, now the 3090's out, so I absolutely have to run and go get one, but I don't. Because for right now, my 2080 Ti is doing good, and things look good, and as this develops over the course of the next year or so, great many bugs and a great many features that people want, it will be implemented in.
It's got a 1660 Ti with proper fans in it, so it's some sort of a hybrid between a onboard video and a dedicated graphics card. And I'm running on high settings, 20 frames a second, but I have no issue with that. I can land. I don't even notice it unless I look at the frame rate counter. It's not an issue with me. So,
Well, honestly, like the GPUs have increased so much that now we can talk about, generation to generation. We've seen pretty huge improvements. I'm on a GTX 970, but if you look at the RTX 3070, it's pretty much double the performance of what I have right now, which is really good because they're trying to keep the prices at a relatively good price between what we're willing to pay and what they're willing the price to go as far above as possible. If we're looking at it, because we know that NVIDIA's GPUs have been sadly in quite a lack of quantity. They've been holding on their GPUs. There's been a lack of quantities in production. Like barely anyone has been able to get their hands on a 3080 or 3090 if they wanted to. And sadly that made the price skyrocket. That's a pretty darn good strategy if you want to keep those prices up. That's what they did essentially. Is even if you have an MSRP that is low, they were able to bring the prices up with a very low supply. And now that AMD arrived with GPUs that are very well positioned to always be a little more performant than the competition at a little smaller price, even $50, is very impressive. Not only because AMD mindshare wise has always been behind, because people don't always think of AMD as a GPU leader because they decided not to go into the high-end GPU space last generation, which is why the 2080 Ti was so expensive. It kind of brought back this competition that we're seeing now, and I know it's a slow and gradual change, but AMD has TSMC behind, which manufactures all the chips. And these guys have a lot of capacity. So that 7 nanometer node is the big advantage for AMD, and that's being pushed out. So what I'm seeing is in November, December, we're going to have a lot of AMD cards that are going to go on the market. And those cards, you're going to be able to buy within the first hour of release if you want to. I don't believe there's going to be a shortage as much as the RTX cards. That will allow people to actually get a card if they want. That's going to be a big advantage for AMD this time around because NVIDIA is not able to give the chips that people want. At the same time, not even going to mention what's happening with the AIBs and the different branded cards that you can get from ASUS, MSI, Geekblend, and so on. These guys are also behind because NVIDIA wanted to put the Founders Edition really in front for a long time. So another thing that's really not helping. And on top of this, NVIDIA will now have to adjust its GPUs because AMD's came right in the middle and really segmented it even better. So they're going to have to probably add new cards to adjust the same way they did last time with the Super branding, which is why we got 2070 Super and then the normal, the Super, and then a TI, because they needed to segment the market differently after AMD's GPUs got released. So that's going to happen. That's going to take time. NVIDIA may have shortages until Q1 2021. So for those interested in GPUs, keep an eye out for both of those things. Did consider every other thing that was on the list. So maybe it's just in the background.
You know, there was the first Q&A, Jörg had answered somewhat definitively that, you know, we're not really looking at a career mode kind of a situation right now. There's third parties that can then take that up because we're serious and we want to make sure. I think he was appealing, again, reassuring the real core community that it was a simulator before a game. But I think so many people have spoken and said, you know what, it would be interesting to have the option, of course, nothing mandatory, but to have the option to be able to have a career or some kind of objective. And you have to think it makes a lot of sense because you've got the Xbox folks coming in and they're used to a kind of, at least some level of structure, at least maybe a goal or some
objectives.
Something that kind of, it can guide them while still being open. And I think they want to be able to help those people transition into a new kind of entertainment here, which could end up being something much more than entertainment. So while not scaring us off into thinking they're turning it into an Xbox game, that I think they have seen that a lot of people do want it, and I think enough elements for Xbox say, yeah, we need to implement this in order to ease the transition over to this style of...
And at the same time, the Xbox version we have figured out a few weeks ago is pretty darn close to the PC version. So
right.
What's getting on the Xbox, except for Xbox specific things like having more work for optimization so that people don't need to have like a keyboard with them all the time, still have one, or reduce the use of a mouse, for example, and so on. Things that, apart from those things that are very specific to making interaction with an Xbox work, most of that stuff is going to be the same, you know. And
how about the like Honeycomb?
things.
Honeycomb is actually peripherals compatible with the Xbox. So we've got peripheral makers that formerly would have just been, you know, dealing with the PC, are also inspired now to say, hey, we want to make our stuff compatible as well. They're trying to broaden the audience, and as long as they do that without forgetting their core audience, I think they will succeed. But yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, if you look at that, you can just tell that there's a new way of looking at the future.
And actually, there's more stuff. You know, they said by then Xbox version would be out, VR would be out, the flight model would be fully multi-threaded. They were working on more feedback with the development on the flight model. The accuracy of the simulation would increase. Also things about the flight model, you know, how we mentioned earlier that was blamed to be bugs with like turbulences, people believing those were bugs and things like this. So they believe that when that happens at that moment, a year from now, they would be able to bring back some of the settings that they lowered now to make some of those sadly but realistic updrafts and turbulence reduced. So essentially, they're reducing the possibilities of updrafts and turbulence at the moment because too many people believe they're bugs, and those are being reported constantly. So they're reducing the maximum potential of those updrafts. They're not completely removing them, but instead of having a strong updraft that can bring you 50 knots up to 10,000 feet and have strong winds like this, they're going to minimize it a bit so that you can still have those updrafts. They just
I
won't
wish
be
they would make
as
that. I wish they would let that be a choice for the
well,
simmer.
at this
Even
point.
if dealers can get it, but if people can't deal with it, again though, it's like you said, there's that transition, and I think they're trying to find that middle ground that they don't
Difficult.
scare anybody off. And I
The
think maybe
only
eventually it
way-
will become customizable. But in
The
the
only way they
beginning,
would customize this would be through the flight model, even though it's not something that should be easy to modify for through a user interface. It's so many little factors. Some are impacted by weather and so on. I don't think it would be just modifying one variable like this. I think there would be a lot more work associated with that. But if they really wanted to make it a feature, they would do it in the future.
yeah. I'd rather have the more realistic turbulence and updrafts and learn how to either combat it or avoid it and improve my techniques and my knowledge than to say, you know what, this might be too complicated or it might be, too much for people to deal with. So we're just going to kind of scale it or dumb it down or scale it back. So I'm hoping that after this initial push that integrates these two very diverse groups of people and two very diverse ways of enjoying what you're doing, that maybe there will be some kind of adaptability to allow you to kind of like the way that you can choose between hard, medium, and easy, or true to life, or whatever you want to set your settings at, go from legacy model to this model. Maybe there will be a way eventually that they can, for those that are skilled and they know what they're doing, to incorporate that, and because it's a challenge, and it would help also, it adds life to the sim, because then if you know that exists, you have something to aim for if that is your goal, to say, I want to get as close to the real world as I can get and see how I perform, and maybe I don't perform so great, so I have this extended goal to look forward to. So I'm just hoping that eventually they will allow that scale.
The coloring on this rock we're approaching, pretty cool.
Amazing.
The red has red dust on top.
If you see the real world photos, it is this very distinct color. Matter of fact, let me see. I got a few facts about it that we can discuss.
I'm not even talking about Ayers Rock or whatever. It's this on our waypoint here before we turn.
Peterson, I think there's an airstrip or something down around there, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, it's all close to, roughly the same geography. But it is amazing looking. You certainly know that you're here, because where do you see anything that looks like this? I mean, it's so distinct that you can't mistake yourself for being in New Mexico. Because despite New Mexico,
there's a mod for Monument Valley. It renders those rocks realistically, but then the surrounding terrain looks like blah.
Well, yeah,
they need the coloration that we have here over there.
Yeah, a little bit orange. I thought about that when you said that. I'm like, well, it does have a little bit of an orange, reddish tint. Nothing like this though. This is extremely vibrant.
Oh yeah, just looking straight down. I mean, you don't see that anywhere else.
No.
Not the same way. Like when we do our flight in Namibia, we did have quite a color palette that was close to this in the reds. We also had a lot of greens and blues.
Yeah.
That was a really nice mix as well, but it's not the same geography nor the same way we see those different colors. there are more through like old water beds, as this is I don't even know how to describe this. It's just very different, but in a nice way.
Now you see why I picked it.
Yeah, you picked really well.
I tried. I will confess, sometimes I'm picking places that I want to go that I haven't, or with a couple that I have planned, they are actually places that I have been that I can compare in the sim, but this is one of them that I have not been. And I made a joke to somebody. I said, 23andMe has found some cousins in some really great parts of the world. Now, granted, they're distant cousins, but I'm thinking, you know what? What better excuse to say, hey, cousin, I've arrived. Give me an excuse to go to New Zealand. I've got cousins. I've got cousins in Australia. Let's go visit.
Yeah, that would be lots of fun. honestly.
Super unique. Yeah.
And there's like rocks on that level, that waypoint SV006, which is 12 o'clock if you're following that point. And then you have the big rock down there to the west, which is, so it's kind of weird how those rocks down there. The other one down there kind of looks just like an asteroid fell.
Just landed.
You're gonna have a 3-story building next to it.
Spaceship has landed.
Yeah,
Nice.
honestly.
So glad the server is working well for us.
Oh my god, such a...
Thank you for the suggestion. Save the day. Oop. Can you say overspeed? I don't know if you can hear that, but
Nope.
good.
You're
Going
safe.
a little bit too fast, but I was trying not to fall too far around me. I have to kind of look and see. But yeah, the one ahead of us is definitely a handcrafted model. But the one in the back, now that I look at it, the cluster there, that mine and Drated.
Oh, it's incredible detail. The color, that you can see the cracks in the rocks. It's
What's nice is it's nicely done, and we're all enjoying it so much, and yet there's so much room for improvement that there's no reason to think, well, where do we go from here? I've conquered all the world, and now what do I do? But there is room to improve, and it's exciting, and the technology will come along that will allow for sharper imagery, and the hardware will improve that will be able to run it. So it's all kind of coming in conjunction with each other.
It's all about the hardware.
Yep.
Honestly, you look at it, for the past 20, 30 years, it's all being... Every time we keep thinking this, oh my god, in 10 years this thing will run amazing because you'll have the best GPU and so on and so on. But 10 years from now, we'll have more wants and more needs, and we'll find new ways to